MS Now's Mark Santia is on the ground in Tucson. Also with me, Ed Davis, former Boston Police Commissioner who helped lead the hunt for the Boston Marathon bombers, and Tim Clementi, former FBI counterterrorism agent. Ed, a lot of people use gloves. So where do investigators start to determine whether this has anything to do with the case?
Well, I think that's an enormous clue that we've got our hands on at this point in time. The idea of canvassing suspected escape routes of criminals is as old as detective work. And the fact that they found these gloves a mile and a half away is a testament to really good work. But what's really important today is that those gloves will most likely contain what's referred to as touch or trace DNA. And if they're able to get that, then eventually they will solve this case. It might require testing people. It might require following people and picking up items that they've had their hands on or drank from. But we've used that strategy in the past, and it's worked really well.
Tim, in the extensive search we've been seeing, are there specific things that they look for? Obviously, they found a pair of gloves, but what kinds of things might say to them, oh, this is something we need to bag and get analyzed?
Well, I would say anything related to what the person was wearing in those images. Any of that clothing could have been discarded on the side of the road or into a ditch or a dumpster. Obviously, the individual would want to be secreted, which is why he covered his entire body for those images. But when he gets away, he might want to remove all of that clothing and get rid of it as quickly as he can. And one thing I would add about those gloves is that not only will we be looking for his DNA, but we'd be looking for Nancy's as well, because if he touched Nancy, there would be that trace DNA on the outside of those gloves, which would quickly rule out the possibility that these are just random gloves tossed on the side of the road. If it has Nancy's DNA, then we know very well that these are the suspect's gloves that he wore. And so whatever DNA is on the inside would ID who that person is, which may take an extensive genealogical. How quickly can they get those results? That should be very quick. If they should have Nancy's DNA now, I would imagine, or from family members, but there's plenty of things in her house that would have her DNA. So it should be a pretty quick match. I would imagine that today or tomorrow we would know if that information is gotten.
Mark, there's another new development you're following regarding a request to people who live near Guthrie's home. Give us the latest on that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of movement today, Chris. We've seen movement actually at Nancy's house. Investigators set up a tent. We want to get right to that video. They set up a tent over the front entrance. And, you know, Chris, that's where the doorbell footage, surveillance video of the suspect came from. Tents are often used in investigations. They're set up to protect any potential evidence from the elements. They're also possibly used to protect the investigative process, protect any potential leads from the media and public standing outside of Nancy's home. Now, the tent was up for about an hour as investigators processed that scene. But what you mentioned, Chris, we know that investigators are now expanding. They're building out that timeline, going back in time from the moment Nancy disappeared. There's a new notice that was posted in the Ring community app. Take a look at this. It says, quote, investigators are now requesting video footage from January 11th, days before Nancy disappeared, from January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight regarding the Nancy Guthrie case. Also, Saturday, January 31st, between 9:30 and 11 a.m., there was a suspicious vehicle around 10 a.m. in the neighborhood. They're asking that people who live in that area check their camera footage if they have anything, if they see any movement, to call detectives. They don't have to sort of decipher it. Let the detectives do that. Investigators are asking for people to check their footage and come forward. Chris?
And are you surprised investigators are just asking for that footage now, or would there have to have been something? Obviously, there was now they think they maybe have some sighting reporting of a car, but why now?
Well, I think there's been a general request for this type of information right from the get-go. I think what's encouraging about this is that there have been some clues that have directed them to a certain point in time and a date. It is it would be impossible to commit this type of crime without some pre-attack surveillance. And so if they're starting to get some information that points you to a day and a particular time, and they mention a suspicious vehicle, these are big, big clues. If you have a vehicle type, you can start to run that down, even if you don't have a plate number. this is a really important development. A combination of this of these gloves and what they've put in that post, I think, are very encouraging.
Tim, we've gotten some numbers over the last 12 hours or so. The FBI, I'm wondering what they can do to. They have not released numbers, but local officials say they had to comb through 18,000 calls, tips, and 4,000 came in just in that 24 hours, one day after they released the video footage. Where do you even begin?
Well, Chris, that's both a blessing and a curse in an investigation like this. The blessing is that now you have many, many leads to work from. The curse is that you may not have the manpower to work all those leads immediately. The 4,000 leads, I would imagine those are going to keep steamrolling in because that video is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. As we saw with that driver, there are people that will look at that, look at the demeanor, the gait, the stance, the clothing that the individual was wearing in the video, and will think, hey, I know that guy, or I saw that guy. I think I saw him yesterday at Walmart. Any of these things will be called in, and they all have to be run down. And that's a lot of man hours, which thankfully the FBI and the local authorities are putting in the man hours required to try and follow these things, but it's a daunting task.
And it's been a week since police have held a briefing in this case. Strategically, especially given the high interest in it, why do that? And is it sending a message to whoever took Nancy Guthrie?
There's a lot of work behind the scenes with the FBI behavioral psychologists and psychiatrists. So they're giving a lot of thought to the best way to prompt the difference between forcing someone to call you and developing a relationship with them. And unfortunately, we don't have insight into all of those facts, but the timing of press conferences is going to be dependent on what experts are saying should be the timing. On the other hand, transparency is really important in these investigations, and the public can solve these crimes if they're let in a little bit. So there's always that balancing act between keeping evidence private for the trial and encouraging the public to come into the investigation and act as an asset. And so I would assume that's what's happening now, but I also assume that they've got to have a press conference pretty soon to give an update on this. A week is a long time.